Hey, this is Neal Morse, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives.
Oh my, we let it go by, but we can't deny the things that he's done. Who knew? Now what shall we do? The crowd thinks it's true, they think he's the one. They think he's the one. They think he's the one.
You fools, you know nothing. This cannot go on one way or another. This Jesus is done. It's not right that the nation should suffer the loss. For the good of the people, he must go to the cross.
Oh my, we let it go by, so we can't deny the things that he's done. Who knew? Now what shall we do? The crowd thinks
Hey everybody, this is Scott Medina for Sonic Perspectives. We've got Neal Morse with us today because although you've probably already been inundated with The Great Adventure, amazingly he's got another double album coming out this year. It's called Jesus Christ the Exorcist, and we're going to focus on that. So welcome to the call, Neal.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah, as I said, it's your second double album in less than 6 months. I mean, are you going to make this a habit?
I hope not. The funny thing is, I never wanted to make a double album like ever. I remember early in the Spock's Beard days, some of the prog fans, I remember one in particular kept kind of hounding me about, when are you going to do your double concept album, man? When are you going to do your Lamb Lies Down? And I thought, oh, that seems so predictable, you know. I really didn't want to do that. And then, you know, when it happens, it must just happen naturally, you know, as all of these albums, they just wanted to be doubles. And whenever, you know, Snow was that way, we really resisted having it be a double. But, you know, you got to follow the music where it wants to go. And Jesus Christ the Exorcist is no different.
Yeah, it seems like you have had resistance all along, you know, whether it's in the guise of Mike Portnoy or someone else, and somehow you've all come around and said, yeah, that was a really good decision. I'm glad it went there. And,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about this one, because you started writing this musical, Jesus Christ the Exorcist, I think in 2008, 2009, and so how did the timing come about to revisit it last year? First with the Morse Fest performance, where you did the whole musical last year in Morse Fest for our listeners who may not realize that, and now subsequently doing a studio album of it.
Well, yeah, it was quite providential. We really only did Jesus Christ the Exorcist at Morse Fest because Mike Portnoy was booked all year with Sons of Apollo. And so my wife and I, we were racking our brains as to what could we do that we wouldn't need Mike for. And so we did the Jesus musical. And as soon as I thought of that, I thought, well, it's not very known. You know, kind of the point, the original thought of Morse Fest was, well, you know, the only way this will really become a thing is if people, you know, travel in for it from all over the world. And the only way that they're going to do that is if we're going to play some album that maybe, you know, we've never played in its entirety, or, you know, something that we know is kind of, you know, a big deal to the fans. And the Jesus musical wasn't really that, didn't, you know, because it had never been released, only to the inner circle in demo form. And but I just got so excited about it, and I prayed about it, and I felt like, oh yes, this is what we should do. And it just went so well. But what was really interesting was right in the weeks before I was going to begin rewriting it, I knew that for Morse Fest I was going to have to revisit it, rewrite it, cut it down a little bit. It was 2.5 hours long, the original draft was. And so I knew I had to rewrite it. And right when I was entering into that process, I got a call from music business friend of mine, the same guy who called me in 2008 to suggest that I write it, he called me in 2018 and said, "You're not going to believe this. I've got a record deal for the Jesus musical." And I said, "Really? Wow, that's really interesting, because I'm just entering into this whole rewrite phase." You know, I was just I was trying to cram that in while we were also making the Great Adventure album. It was all piling on top of one another in a kind of crazy way, but it's all worked out, and all these they both got done, and I think they're both really extraordinary and very different, of course, from one another.
Yeah, about what percentage of the material would you say was written back in 2009, and what was totally newly written after you started revisiting it last year?
Well, a lot of it remained. You know, I would say 75% of it is from the original version, and 25% of it is either new or reworked or rearranged music and themes from the first draft as well. There was a thing where I kind of joined. I removed one whole section, and then I took these other two sections. I think it was the Garden of Gethsemane thing and maybe Jesus Before Pilate or something like that. I don't know. I remember taking these two different things and throwing them together and making them one piece. I was just thinking about the flow of it as a little bit more of a concert kind of performance and setting, like we have at Morse Fest. And so the rewrite was really geared towards that. But I think it works really, really well for the album version as well.
And you've titled it Jesus Christ the Exorcist. Why use that description of the Exorcist rather than something like Jesus Christ the Healer or Savior or Preacher?
Right, well, it could have been any of those things. As I was writing it, it seemed that I was really attracted to writing about Jesus and his activity of casting devils out of people, and it just kind of happened naturally as I was, reading through the stories, and I began to write the Madman of the Gadarenes story, where Jesus casts this legion of demons out of this man. I wound up writing this actually kind of almost funny. this rather light-hearted, which is really kind of strange all by itself. This sort of gentle giant telling of the Madman of the Gadarene story with a bit of a sense of humor. And I really liked it. That was one of the early pieces that I wrote that I was like, oh, I think I'm onto something here, because I've never heard anything like that before. I don't know that I've ever heard any piece of music that was based on that story, even in classical music or anything. There may be, I'm sure there is, of all the music that's been written based on the Gospels throughout the centuries. I'm sure somebody did besides me, but I was really excited about that. And I just accented also his healing of Mary by that same method. And so that was why I thought of the title. And I guess I thought maybe it would be a little bit jarring, which might be good. It might some people might not like it, but it also might grab some people's attention, I suppose. Really, the only reason why, of course, we have the connotation that we have of the word exorcist is from the film. Right. So we think of that as being, it's some kind of a horror movie thing, and that, of course, it doesn't mean that at all.
Yeah, it does grab people in a different way. It's not Jesus Christ Superstar. No, it's Jesus Christ the Exorcist. And you're like, whoa, what is going on?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the same way, Jesus Christ Superstar was a jarring, sort of funny title to me when I heard it when I was a kid. It's like, because the word superstar was just being used a lot. It was a new word, really, at that time. And then to say Jesus Christ Superstar was, I don't know, I thought it was a joke at first.
Yeah, it's sort of outrageous. Yeah.
Ultimately, none of that matters if you like the music.
Yeah.
I mean, the titles really don't matter that much once you get into the piece. And I of course hope people will do that.
Yeah, and you know, interestingly enough, there is sort of this humor that does come into a number of these pieces. You know, like you were talking about a Gentle Giant approach, which of course is a classic technique that you've used a few different times. But also, like, listening to the song "He Must Go to the Cross," it's just such a full-on, you know, almost heavy metal anthem with like a, you know, "We Will Rock You" kind of stomp in the background, and
it's like "We Will Rock You" meets AC/DC. Or that was part of the rewrite. That was the rewrite from last July. It was when I came up with that. I think what I wound up feeling from the first draft was that it needed some more up numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I was trying to write some stuff that said the same thing. You know, I'd come up to a point in the first draft where, you know, for example, this is Peter saying, "Okay, I believe you're the Christ and I'll follow you anywhere." That particular scene. You know, I would just listen to, and the first draft had this like really long ballad, and I thought, we don't need another long ballad. I mean, Mary sang "Free at Last" not very long ago,
mm-hmm.
so it should be something up and maybe shorter. And so I wrote "Better Weather."
Right.
You know, so a lot of the things were like that. I had songs that were saying the same thing or you know, providing the same scene, but then I wanted to write something that was maybe up tempo and shorter, and I really felt like I got some help last July with that, because I did it like in 10 days or something. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's unbelievable you were doing that at the same time as The Great Adventure. I don't even know how you got through those couple of months putting all that together.
I basically had the last 2 weeks of July for the Jesus musical, and then and to actually prepare it for all of the people to learn at Morse Fest.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did I have to write it, but I actually had to demo it as well.
Yeah.
And then send all the parts out to everyone so they could learn it.
Yeah.
You know, it was pretty intense.
I bet.
And then I remember Mike came for the Great Adventure sessions. The whole band came the first week of August, and it was an action-packed time, that's for sure.
Boy.
It was great. What a blessing. What a blessing. Oh, my goodness.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that track, "He Must Go to the Cross," I just love Jake Livgren's portrayal of Caiaphas there. And it just always leaves me with a smile. It's so over the top, just grab you in that moment.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, you know, it was so cool. I feel like that was a God thing as well. Jake came down early for Morse Fest. He was just like, I really love this piece. Can I just come down early and hang out while you guys rehearse? You know, I was trying to schedule all the rehearsals so, you know, this singer would come in this day and this singer would come in this day. And, you know, so they weren't all waiting around or, you know, that kind of thing. Jake just wanted to just be there the whole time. And it was so cool because he had printed up all the lyrics for the whole show and put it in a book. And he has this amazing voice. So he was, if nobody was there and we were working on the music and there were no vocalists, he would sing whatever the part was. He knew the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
He sang Mary's parts.
What a stand-in! Wow.
And he sang them really well. It was crazy.
That is
so
crazy.
I got to know, you know, I knew he was a great singer, but I got to know even more of what a great singer he was. And so a lot of people did file sharing, like Ted sent his vocals from California. He didn't fly out to do the vocals on the album. Jake, on the other hand, was like, I really want to come. I really want to be there. I want to come be with you. I want to work with you on this. And I'm so glad that he wanted to do that because he finished his vocals for Peter in the morning. And then we were doing ensemble vocals, you know, all the men's ensemble things with my son Will and Mark Pogue and myself, and I think one other guy. I think. Ugh, I hate to leave people out. Yeah. If I forgot you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But then we had this time in the afternoon. We had just extra time, and I didn't have someone for Caiaphas at that time. John Schlitt, it wasn't going to work out for him to do it, and it was pretty late in the game, and I still didn't have anyone. I was talking to, who did I email about that? I talked to Michael Sweet. I talked to Kip Winger. I was talking to all these different singers, but nobody really had the time to do it. And so I was like, hey, you can sing anything. Because I knew how, he had done that at the rehearsals.
Yeah.
You want to take a stab at Caiaphas? And we happened to have like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour window. And of course, he already knew the whole show. So he just walked in there and killed it. It was like, hallelujah, thank you, Lord. It was great.
Well, I got to say, I saw John Schlitt play Caiaphas at the Morse Fest show, and then listening to Jake do essentially a John Schlitt on the recording. I mean, it's uncanny. It's he nailed it. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So let's talk about the casting for a second. I'm really curious about the role of Jesus, because maybe it was watching Ted singing "The Devil's Got My Throat" in the Snow performances, but I always seem to have in my head, oh, Ted would just play a great devil, and suddenly he's there playing Jesus. How were you guided to cast him in the role of Jesus?
Well, really, I was thinking much more, nothing about him or his persona or anything like that. It was all just about vocals. In my original thinking, I'm very unvisually oriented. Let's put it that way. I try to turn over as much of the visual concerns and content to other people because they're better at it than I am. I'm really very auditory, so most of my choices are always going to be based on music first. And so that was the thing with Ted. I just knew he would sing the role really, really well, knowing his voice and how great his voice is. And I think he had a little apprehension about taking on the Jesus role.
Yeah.
It's a sort of personal. And I just assured him, man, just sing it. You're not going to have to do a ton of acting or anything like that. We weren't, we did it with minimal staging, and I feel like he really felt it. I mean, there were times when, at the performance and at the rehearsals where you could see him tearing up a little bit in the parts that were really touching to him. And that was a beautiful thing to see. And of course, he does such a wonderful job on the album.
Yeah, there was this section when Jesus is revealing his identity to Mary at the tomb, and in the performance, right when Ted was about to sing, Mary, Mary, something happened to him on stage, like before he could even get those words out. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah. Well, that moment, I don't know why that moment is so special, but it's because there's nothing going on musically that it's just a really special moment. When I wrote it, I knew it was a special moment. And I'm just so glad, when you feel something and you feel like something is special and has that indefinable anointing, for lack of a better word, has that magic to it. When you see that other people feel the same way, I don't know, there's something magical about that. And then you're sharing it and everyone's feeling it, and it's just like, wow, that's just the greatest thing that you could be involved in, that I can think of, and to have it all be built around music, which we all love so much. It's just, it's hard to put into words how it makes you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever have challenges holding it together yourself on stage, like as you're seeing the Jesus story playing out in front of your eyes, and this and this musical vision that you've had coming to fruition, is that ever so overwhelming that it's hard for you to keep track of your musical parts you need to play or sing?
I don't hold it together.
Yeah, well, there is that. Yeah.
I'm very well known for falling apart on stage all the time.
But it doesn't seem to stop your fingers.
Sometimes it happens when I'm really not expecting it. I mean, like I prayed in the morning of on the cruise, the last cruise to the edge. We were going to do the second half of the Great Adventure and then the encores, and I prayed that the Lord would touch my heart and I would really feel the music. I don't know. I think it was almost funny. I mean, I cried through it was like 45 minutes.
I know. I was there. I don't think I've ever seen you cry so much in a performance.
Yeah, that was. I was having, it was just. I was just sometimes the emotion of the whole thing. You know, the moment and the music and the people and the Lord and what He's done for you and I don't know. You can't even say what it is. You don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just so moved, and I'm thankful that it's all still so fresh for me.
Yeah, yeah. For the musicians in the band, you have them mostly rooted from the Neal Morse Band with a few obvious shuffles going on. What was it like for you having Eric covering the drum kit on that one?
That was so much fun. That was actually my wife's idea.
Nice.
Yeah. We go for walks and kick things around, like, oh, this thing's coming up. Well, what do you think about this? And she's very people oriented, like my head's a little bit in the clouds thinking about music, and she's more grounded and thinking about people. And I think she was thinking, well, since we don't have Mike, who could we get that would be maybe a little different, but something that people would be interested in. And she said, hey, Eric plays drums, doesn't he? And I'm like, oh yeah, he's great. Like, what about having him? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, Talon also was my wife's idea. Talon David is Mary.
Boy, what a find. She was just amazing.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she's incredible. Yeah, I didn't have anybody for the Mary role up to August. It was August.
Wow.
And so I was about 6 weeks out, and I still didn't have a Mary. Everyone that I had talked to, they took. It was just a long process of waiting for people to kind of send in a tape of them singing it. And I was like waiting and waiting, and then I finally get the tape and go, I don't think it's really right for this person. And so then I look for another person, and then I finally kind of get their thing and go, well, it's good, but I don't know. I didn't feel like it was right. And then when Talon sent her, she just had a videotape of her singing The Woman of Seven Devils standing next to a wall in her room. And I said, okay, I'm sold. Let's do this. And I think by the time I made that decision, I think it might have been close to a month out. And she was so young. Those are my concerns about her is like, wow, she's like a third of everybody else's age.
Right.
Not that matters particularly, but it, as a performance that might be, I don't know. I was just concerned about that. I didn't know she doesn't have a lot of experience doing concerts. Her background is more in musical theater. And she's, she's in college taking musical theater classes, and I just didn't know if she would have, the experience to pull it off. And wow.
Sure did.
Well, I mean, I think everybody that was there, I call her the surprise hit of the festival.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely chose well, and that all came together just in time. Oh,
yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
Right. And on the album, as far as guitar goes, you have Paul as the main one, but also Eric and yourself. You played a lot of guitars on the recording too, right?
Yeah, actually, most of the guitars really are played by me. Eric did one guitar solo. That's the one during the crucifixion.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul did he did guitar on There's a Highway, the solo in the Overture.
Yep.
And one other thing. But anyway, yeah, most of the rest of the guitars are all me. Some of them are from 2008.
Wow.
Yeah, if I just kind of went through it, and like where I thought it was broke, I fixed it. Where I thought it wasn't broke, I didn't fix it. You know, some of the performances I really like the way. Sometimes you like the way things are on the demo, and it's like, well, let's roll with that. It sounds great.
Why not?
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you got a little talk box there and during the devil theme too.
Yeah, that was from the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I punched into that. Sometimes it's really interesting. I punched into this talk box guitar track. So part of it is from 2008, and part of it's from 2018.
Nice. Jumping.
I've got vocals on there. My pilot vocal is part 2008, part 2018. Isn't that crazy?
I can believe that. Yeah.
I just matched it up, man.
Nice.
And I think I'm probably using the same vocal mic. I've been using the same vocal mic for a long time.
Comes in handy in situations like this.
I just love it. So we've done a couple shootouts with different vocal mics, and we always come back to that one. So it's really easy to match up.
Looking at the words of Jesus that you chose to use in this play, this musical, some of Jesus' most powerful words are when he's on the cross, from Luke, forgive them for they do not know what they do. And you didn't use those actual words toward the end of the performance when he's on the cross. Was there a reason why?
Let's see. I do, right at the very beginning, I don't use those actual words because, it didn't fit in the song. I say instead, Father, forgive them their envy and pride. They do not know whom they've crucified. Mm-hmm. Father, forgive them and heal them too. They do not know what they do. Now I give my soul up to you. I'm singing it 2 octaves low. Mm-hmm. But which is saying the same thing, just a little bit broader.
Right. So really focusing on just having it fit the music.
Yeah, sometimes, I would take, you take a thought of his and then see how you would want to sing it. And I felt like that was worth embellishing. Mm-hmm. Because I believe that would be the Lord's heart. That don't just forgive them, but heal them. And he came for the healing of our hearts. So I embellished a little bit, but I hope when we meet, he won't be upset with me.
Yes. He'll be like, it was so musical,
Well, one of the things that I did with his words, and if you know the scriptures well, you would notice this, is I took different things that he said to different people, and I had him say them to different people. What I mean is, I took some of the things that Jesus says to the woman at the well, or to the woman caught in adultery, and I basically had him say all of those things to Mary. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all things he said, but they weren't all necessarily in that scene. Mm-hmm. But I would just kind of add it because it just I wanted to get as much of his teaching. I feel like a lot of the movies and plays and musicals and things about Jesus, a lot of them focus, only on the crucifixion, really, the last few days of his life. Jesus Christ Superstar and the Passion of the Christ both take place on the last few days of his life, and then of course they put a lot of his teaching in there. But I wanted to do one that was a little more comprehensive and covered his whole ministry, which I think is more important than just the ending.
Yeah, you really do that with a lot of the songs, and then there's even some additional notes in the accompanying booklet, describing what's going on, what's happened between songs and things like that.
Yeah, come on, man. Let's hear him preach, man. Come on.
Yeah, yeah. And at the very end, in the final song, "The Greatest Love of All," there's an extensive duet between Jesus and Mary, basically stating the new relationship with Christ and his people. And why did at that point, why did you choose to have that dialogue be with Mary instead of one of the apostles?
Well, because she's the one who's there in the story.
Tomb.
She's
At
the
the tomb,
one
yeah.
who goes to the tomb. The apostles are all scattered.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important. I've always felt like that was a really important part of the gospel. And I've heard some really good talks on it. A friend of mine used to pastor a church in London. I remember him giving a really, good talk that really touched my heart about it's dark and she has no hope. Her hopes are completely dashed. She goes to the tomb just thinking, well, I'll anoint his body. He's dead and it's over, but I'll just sort of do this last rites sort of thing, not expecting to find life, And then just the whole beauty of it. And when he calls her name. And then I do want to, with "The Greatest Love of All," I just thought, well, how can we talk about the love of God that's poured out through Jesus in a way that really kind of, encapsulates the whole thing? And I think that "The Greatest Love of All," I guess I always felt like the Whitney Houston song was selling love short. Talking about the greatest love being the learning to love yourself, that song says. And even way back then, I thought, well, no, man, the greatest love of all is the love of God. Come on. Mm. So I think that's, a pretty appropriate way for them to sing that, and then for him to say to her, "Go and tell my brothers, go and tell the disciples that I've been risen from the dead." And it seemed like a good exclamation point to end on.
Yeah. Now that the studio album is coming out, do you think you're going to be inspired to tour this show?
Oh, I would love to. I don't know about touring. Mm-hmm. I think it might be difficult because we'd have to have, it'd be a pretty big group, even to do it with people doubling on parts, and even in a cut down way, you'd need to have, I think at least 13 people and 6 crew or something. It'd be like 20 people.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I could see it. My vision and my hope and my prayer is that there'll be enough interest that we could do a week here, a week there, and have some time off and do a week, But I don't know if that will happen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
It sounded like it was breaking up a little bit. But anyway, that's my hope. But I wouldn't want to do a bunch of one-night stands. It seemed like it would be, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right for that kind of a piece. It would be better if you could be somewhere for a little while, be in a small theater, So I hope that happens. I believe it will if there's enough interest from people. Mm-hmm. That's what it'll take.
And have you talked to people like Ted or Talon and Nick if they'd be up for doing that in that kind of a situation, or will you approach that at the point you might get some offers?
Well, I did talk to them. Yeah, I talked to Ted and Talon. I figured I would talk to them first. And there wasn't really much of any kind of time frame where they could both do anything. Talon's in college. She's going for a year in Melbourne, in Australia, starting in July. And so that kind of makes that a bit difficult.
Yeah, Australian tour.
Yeah, and Ted's quite busy too. And so I thought, well, you know, let's let the album come out and see what gets stirred up. With my strategy with this whole thing from the very beginning on this album was to just wait on the Lord and see what doors God would open and not try to force anything. You know, I wrote it, I presented it, Michael Kaplan shopped it, nothing much happened at that time, and I just thought, well, when it's ready to happen, it'll happen. So that's my feeling about us doing it live again.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect approach. And, you know, who would have expected that would actually be a Morse Fest and then lead to a studio album? So we'll see where it wants to be taken from here.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Well, there's just so many beautiful melodies and amazing songs on this album. I'm really excited for everybody to hear it. You know, songs like "Love Is Called My Name." It's just such a fantastic duet with you and Nick.
Oh yeah, thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I love how you got that personal. You personalized it with the "I've seen him heal my daughter's heart" in there. That was really beautiful.
Yeah, I like to put in things that are like, you know, this isn't just about the past.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Well, we look forward to its release next month in the middle of June, and we'll see where it wants to go from there. And what else do you have on your docket now? You're probably finishing up Flying Colors writing and recording?
Yeah, exactly. I did background vocals and some additional keyboards yesterday morning from like 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Man, I got my 8 hours in. Yeah, it sounded great. Yeah, I did like stacks and stacks of vocals and things, and yeah, it's really, really good. So that's we're intending to have that come out in August. And also a live Neal Morse Band in Czech Republic of the Great Adventure in August as well. So hopefully all that stuff will be out in time for Morse Fest.
Wow, so the Flying Colors album might get out even before Morse Fest.
Well, we hope so.
Boy.
We're trying.
Yeah, well, you really bumped that up. That's very impressive. Fantastic. That's great to hear.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah. But going back to Jesus Christ the Exorcist, do you have plans on when you're going to release the live show from Morse Fest last year? Will that come sometime in the subsequent year, or are you going to wait and see what happens with the studio version?
I would imagine we'll wait.
Mm-hmm.
You know what would be great? Oh, well, I won't talk about it because it's not happening. I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen, so I won't talk about things that may not happen. I have things that pop into my mind like, oh, that would be great. But yeah, I think we will release the live Jesus Christ the Exorcist. I always say Jesus musical because it's shorter.
Yeah.
In 2020, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the Great Adventure, does it look like Morse Fest is going to be the final performance, or are there any chances you might do other legs of the tour? Because it sounds like it was just as fulfilling a tour as you've ever had.
It was. Yeah, we haven't gotten any other offers that were that made sense for us to do, should we say? And so yeah, it looks like the Morse Fest performance with strings and horns and choir is going to be the send-off.
Yeah, well, what a send-off it'll be. If anyone listening doesn't have their tickets yet to that Morse Fest be sure you get it for the final performance of the Great Adventure, as well as a whole evening with flying colors. Maybe debuting brand new material there.
Yeah, that's right. We will be. We'll be playing old, a lot of our older material too.
Sure.
I'm sure. And Randy McStein is opening for Flying Colors. That's going to be cool.
I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah. It'd be cool if he sits in somewhere else, maybe Saturday night or something. Who knows?
Yeah, he's really cool. I really enjoyed when he sat in with me on my New York Life and Times show, and it was just great.
Right. He even sat in once on the cruise for Steve Morse's place. You guys did some Flying Colors material there. I think he was doing, with Blue Ocean or something like that.
Is that right? Oh, I bet you're right.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
I've done so many different things on those cruises that I can't even remember.
I know.
I sat in with Casey, and I sat in with Spox, and I don't know, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's all a blur, man.
You just speaking of blurs, you just released the 1 hour or plus demo of the Great Adventure, the version that preceded all the rewrites and everything. And there's several pieces of music on there that, didn't make the final cut. And I'm just curious, is it ever possible that you'll pull some of those pieces back for future songs? Or now that you've released the demos, you're kind of like, that was it, and they're gone now?
No, I think we totally could. I don't consider releasing things to the inner circle as being like actual releases.
Yeah.
It's like that's sort of a private thing that just goes to this smaller group of people. So I don't see any problem with taking something if it wants to belong somewhere else, then we want to put it there, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear, because on the A Love That Never Dies extended version that you had on there, there's in the middle there's this section that sounds like it's called The Way It Has to Be. That was from Eric. Did you like that part?
Man,
I love that part. Is that Eric playing the lead guitar on that?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that part. I'm like, oh man, I really hope they pull this back and incorporate this into a future album. That's too good to just let go.
That was a hard thing to cut. Some of the stuff that was left on the cutting room floor just like broke our hearts,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more stuff too. There's more stuff from my December drafts. I should release that next. Because there's a bunch of stuff. There's whole songs that I loved from that stuff that got cut out. That stuff was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Some of it.
Yeah.
But you got to do what you feel like is best for the whole piece.
Sure.
And I think we felt like if we were gonna, the thing about that slow version of the way it has to be, if we're gonna do this whole slow thing at the end with The Love That Never Dies, we wound up feeling like we couldn't have a slow song so close, another big long slow song close to the end. It just didn't seem to feel right.
Right.
So one of them had to go. Yeah. But yeah, I love that song too.
Yeah,
it's
well,
really cool.
I'm glad to hear you kind of keep those things around, and so you could pull them back in at some point.
Yeah, totally.
Nice. Sweet. Well, thanks so much for catching us up on all these goodies and what's coming up in the future, and good luck with the finishing of the Flying Colors album too.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Scott. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
It's all good. We're working away, getting it done. On to the next epic.
Indeed. Yep, you are. And any updates in the transatlantic world? Does that have any possibility of moving forward next year sometime?
It does. Yeah, there are some possibilities there we're discussing, but nothing concrete yet.
Yeah.
I do want people to know about Waterfall.
Please.
I haven't said anything about Waterfall, my streaming app.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to stream all my music, like in Flying Colors and Transatlantic, Neal Morse Band, and everything practically every frontline release I've ever made in my entire life, you can get it all at the go to waterfallstreaming.com.
It's a really cool app. I've been enjoying the stuff you've been putting in the mystery box there, and then just the access to some things that I didn't even know existed. It's really well done.
There's some things that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah. See, exactly. No, it's incredible. And the guys who have been working on that are just super sweet and really attentive to what fans are asking for. So they're making updates all the time. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah. Okay, well, to all our listeners again, the new Jesus Christ piece comes out on June 15th, and it's epic. So you're going to have to check that out. Morse Fest, there's still some tickets on sale for that, so be sure to get that. And Neal, we can't wait to see what you dream up next.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks a lot, Scott. Have a good one, man.
Thanks. You too, bro. Okay.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Be sure to join Sonic Perspectives on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter accounts so that you'll get the updates with the latest interviews, album and concert reviews, and other news coming out. We're going to leave you now with a track from the new album. This is the fantastic single called Love Has Called My Name, which features both Neal singing as well as Nick DiVirgilio. Enjoy.
Following what I feel from what I've seen, I know it's real. Jesus Christ, the Son of Man, all power of heaven's in his hand. And we are all disciples trying to understand. Devils cast out, I thought were me. He's the master of my destiny. And wherever he goes, I go as close as I can be. 'Cause love has called my name.
once the 12 disciples gathered